Greetings. Today we're going to look at this early PC gem. This is the Atom, the ColecoVision family computer, which was released in 1983. Coleco had quite a bit of success in those days with the Cabbage Patch dolls and the ColecoVision video game module or console, which they did pretty well with. It was ahead of its time. It gave you pretty good graphics, and they basically licensed all the popular games and did very well with it, so they decided to get into the home computer market. So I got this. It came in a big box. It had been sitting in somebody's shed or basement or swamp for a really long time, so it needed a whole lot of cleanup, but it looked like a good challenge. So the way this system worked was it came with a daisy wheel printer, and that printer doubled as a power supply for the console. The console also had a slot to insert ColecoVision games, because this is essentially an expanded ColecoVision. It had space for 2 digital tape drives, high-speed digital tape drives, and of course a keyboard, and this would satisfy all of your family's computing needs. This system was released for Christmas 1983, and it cost $725. It came in a coffin-sized box, because as you can see, instead of stacking things on top of each other, they put them side by side into the box. And it was a complete system. You could take it, well, it wasn't complete because it didn't come with any sort of a monitor. But I think it came with an RF modulator, so you could hook it up to your TV. But anyway, it contains a Z80 that's run on 3.58 megahertz. So that's basically a color burst crystal. But it also had 3 6801 I/O processors used as I/O processors, and I would guess one is in the printer. One is in the main console aside the Z80 driving the digital cassettes, and then another one in the keyboard, because they're all connected together with a serial connection they called AtomNet. And so what else? Had 64K of CPU RAM, 16K of video RAM. Video processor was a Texas Instruments TMS 9928A with a screen resolution, wait for it, 256 pixels by 192. This system was extremely unreliable. People would just return these, or had to return them because they just didn't work. And Coleco started losing a lot of money on this, because A, they didn't sell as many as they thought, and B, they kept having to repair these things. And finally they discontinued this system in 1985 because they were losing large amounts of money on it. And at the same time, their other money maker, Cabbage Patch dolls, or kids, or whatever they were called, weren't selling that well either. So in 1988, Coleco folded. They never released official sales figures on this, but it is guessed that they sold 350,000 units throughout its lifetime. My purchase actually included not one, not 2, but 3 printers. This one was by far the best looking one, and this actually works. The other two, not so much. They power the console, but the printers do very strange things. So I got lots of spare parts if this guy ever fails. And other than that, I came up with a suitable monitor. And I think what this used to be, it's actually a DVD player with a composite input. I think it was an automotive entertainment system that you hung on the headrests and to keep the kids entertained while driving around. So with all of that said, let's turn it on. But first, I went through everything. I cleaned things up. I cleaned the heads on the drives. There wasn't really anything totally wrong with it, so I didn't really repair anything. I had to make a video cable, a composite video cable, but I got, it uses a DIN 5 connector, and I have a boatload of MIDI cables, so I repurposed one of them and put RCAs on it, and there was the AV cable. And other than that, let's see. Okay, the master power switch is on the back of the printer. It's a slide switch, which I seem to have a hard time finding. Oh, yeah, here you go. So it did start up. I guess that screen's a bit far away, so probably can't see anything, but it comes up in Adam's electronic typewriter mode, and it's exactly what the name says. It's kind of a minuscule word processor, has some very rudimentary word processing functions you can perform, but in this case it's a typewriter. So whatever I type on the keyboard, okay. And lo and behold, you can actually read this. Looks a little light on the camera, but it's perfectly readable. And this was the ribbon, the print ribbon that was in here. It didn't work at first, but I guess the part that had dried out of the ribbon was in front, and once I typed a few things, it got to another part of the ribbon, and that one was still inked. So that works. And of course it printed whatever I typed in on the monitor too, and then you can go through different settings on it, setting margins. What is that? Margin release. So you just bought yourself an IBM Selectric typewriter in those days, which this was still a lot cheaper than buying a new Selectric. Daisy Wheel is a nice, has a nice quality because it essentially has print heads for every letter with the letter graphics extruded from the hammerheads, and so you get much better quality than the dot matrix printer, but they're slower, they're heavier. Doesn't really matter, but yes, you got a printer, and then the next thing we need to look at are the digital tapes. In my unprofessional opinion, there was a really bad choice to use tapes, cassette tapes. Now these aren't regular cassette tapes, but they're high-speed digital tapes. They look exactly like cassette tapes, but what they did, they wanted to make them look and act different. So here's one, but these holes are in a different, these holes have been moved from where they normally are in a regular cassette. So I was trying to put this in a cassette player to rewind it, and it wouldn't go in because it's got the pegs on the cassette player had no hole to go into, so this wouldn't go in. So let's insert this and see if we can get it to load anything. Now that may take a while, so I'll discuss how this tape is supposed to work while we're waiting for it to do something. Okay, the tape's inserted, and I guess I have to reset the computer for it to start reading the tape. Didn't like that. Why didn't it like it? Tape looks good. Did I have it inserted wrong? There you go. So the way this tape works is it has a fast forward and a rewind that the computer controls, and then a high-speed forward read routine. Now the problem with this is that it needs a directory. And in their wisdom, they put the directory right in the middle of the tape. So what this thing's doing is it's going for fast forward, fast rewind. Oh, it found it very quickly today. But the way it works is it'll try to read the tape. And somehow, whatever data it reads contains the position of that data on the tape. So then it tries to go towards the middle of the tape using, doing fast forward, then reading data, fast forward, reading data, and also opposite. If it was past the middle of the tape, it would read the data, and the data would say, hey, you're past the directory. So then it would fast rewind it, stop, read the data, until it kind of did a binary search till it found the directory. Now, since I ran this before, it must have been in the general vicinity of the directory, because this was pretty fast. This will sit there for a really long time, and all you hear is it going fast forward, fast rewind, read, and it just goes on for minutes and minutes and minutes. But this one worked. So let's see. If I remember correctly, since I tried these, I'm not going to try to load something that takes a long time and then just to fail. But let's try Beam Writer, which is number 4. So we can see it's going into fast. Well, it knows where it is relative to the directory. So I think it has some routines in there that kind of figure out how far to go forward to get into the vicinity, and then actually start reading the data. So I think it's in read mode right now, but quite frankly I don't know. So I'm going to turn off the camera till it finds something. It's making a liar out of me again. The minute I turned off the camera, it loaded Beam Writer and put it on the screen. So does this actually work? Let's see. Players. This is essentially a ColecoVision controller, except it's in beige rather than black as the Coleco controllers were. Did it just say press 1? So I press 1 on the controller. Oh, level 1. What am I supposed to do here? Hello? go. Oh, okay. I have to push up on the joystick. So now things are supposed to appear and I'm supposed to shoot them. You can't move forward, you can only move left and right. And shoot. Let's see, does the other button do something? Yeah, it does. I'm not sure what it did, but it made a noise. I don't think I'm supposed to hit that. But, and so forth. So as you can see, the cassettes, I mean the drive still works, which miraculously, because one of the main points, oh, be quiet. One of the main points of failure were the drives, which used to self-destruct very rapidly, eat cassettes, smoke, and that kind of stuff. I got a handful of tapes with this, but I think 2 of the cassettes still work. Okay, good night. 2 of the cassettes actually worked, and the other 3 or 4 just sat there forever and ever searching for the directory. And on some of them, after about 5 minutes, it would say, you know, read error, blah blah. So it thought it found the directory, but it couldn't read it. And in other cases, I mean, one of the best ones was it forwarded all the way to the end of the tape and then continued trying to forward the tape and making all sorts of squealy noises and stuff like that. So yes, that wasn't an ideal thing. I guess when they were new and they were working, you could use them. They were faster than a plain cassette, but not a great mass storage system. Next, let's see if the cartridge port works on it. And I guess you're supposed to have the machine turned off. We're going to insert river rate into it and see oh, it's reading the tape. Okay, so we're going to stop it. We're going to take out the tape, turn it on again, and it comes up in electronic typewriter mode again. However, this thing has 2 reset switches on it. It has one that's labeled computer, and it has another one that's labeled cartridge. And this one's actually a bit sticky, so I have to help it along, but if I reset on this side, it should run the game. And there it is. Now in games, it sits on the title screen for, what was it? Somebody figured this out, like 13 seconds. It's not, you can't bypass it. You would actually have to change the ROMs that run the ColecoVision part of this. I guess that's their way of making sure that their copyright is ingested by everybody looking at it. But this, no, I guess this one, oh, it's waiting for me to put, there you go, it went into demo mode. So let's press 1. Now, the sound is a little funny on this. This doesn't sound right to me. But as you can see, it plays off with the cartridge. And yeah, so those parts, that all worked. I had to clean up. I had to clean the contacts. Just cleaning. I used up a lot of Windex. But there were no electrical fixes I had to do. So the sound still bothered me. It's hard to explain. It sounds very harsh. It doesn't sound right. The chip obviously works, but there's something funny happening there. And I checked the schematics, and the chip basically feeds the sound, the direct sound output directly. I mean, there's no transistors there, no filters, no capacitors, nothing in its path. So if something were wrong, it's probably the chip itself. But I checked on it. It's a Texas Instruments SN76489A programmable sound generator, or PSG. And I said, well, that sounds familiar to me because the Sega Genesis and others use that chip. However, after taking apart one of my Sega Genesises, I couldn't see the chip on the board. And so I had to do some research, and it turns out that they basically used the chip's core and integrated it into one of the gate arrays in those machines. So it technically has the functionality of that chip, but it doesn't have the chip itself that I could remove and replace the one in the Coleco. So I went out looking for it, and it turns out that not too many legit people have it. I found one that was like $20-some plus shipping, which is a significant percentage of what I paid for everything. So of course I went on eBay and I looked around, and I found a vendor that sold me 10 of them here, 5 and 5, pretty genuine looking. And the best part was, it was like $6.50 with shipping from China. But yeah, I know, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Every single one of these is a fake. I'm not saying they're bad. I don't know what these are. There's probably quad op amps of some sort of other that have been rebadged. And let's just say that the seller started hassling me when I asked for a refund. I'll leave it at that, but it's still got the original chip in it. Once I find one, I'll probably replace it. I mean, at least the sound works, but it just bothers me because it doesn't sound right. So what do we do with this thing? Because with the cassettes, with that kind of secondary storage, it's kind of useless. And actually I think I had a basic cartridge that I was able to load once, but then it wouldn't load again. So you can't even write code for it. I can't even make it print artifact electronics. But there was one more component that I've hidden from you that came along with my purchase. And here's the reason why I bought the whole system. I don't think I would have bought it otherwise. We have a single-sided double-density drive that'll hold 160K. There were, I don't know exact numbers, but there were few of these were made. So I had looked at these before on eBay, and I was kind of shocked to see that these things are selling for $400 and up. But you know, I got a bargain. I paid far less for the whole thing. So then it came time to look at this. So it's missing the bottom of the case. So there's a plastic bottom. And when I took off the top, there was a note on the inside here that said, this controller works, disk drive itself is defective. And what that means is, I mean, these drives, like Ataris and Commodores, you didn't just run a 34-pin cable from the computer, or the computer itself. This doesn't have a disk controller in it. It just uses the Atom net, so it needs a power supply and a disk controller, which is on the PCB underneath this drive, and then that plugs into the drive and runs the drive. Now, Usually when you see notes on things, yeah, works great, works fine, works this, works that, it's usually all a lie. But this, the comment on this one that said that the controller works but the drive doesn't work was 100% true. I took the drive apart, I cleaned it, lubricated it, checked for everything, put it back in. The spindle spins, the head retracts, but it just sits there. It cannot read the data. I didn't get any discs, but I made a couple of discs with a program called IMD, because there are a lot of disk images out there. And it just sits there. When, let's see, this is not plugged in right now. I got to plug in power to it, but the drive's bad. But the controller is good. Now, how do I know that? And I'll show you. And this is how I figured it out. You may have seen some of my earlier episodes where I showed various TRS-80s running off a Gotek that has the flash floppy firmware on it. I found quite a few DSK images online for the Atom. And they were actually all 160K in size. I think the exact number is 163K, 163, 400, whatever. But the file sizes look good. So I dumped a bunch of them on here. Then spent a godly amount or ungodly amount of time trying to configure this thing. I could not get it to work, and then I tried getting it to work on the TRS-80 and it wouldn't work either. And that was the dumbest thing. You see this shorting block here? Can you see it? Right here. That's no good. It turned out that the screen was coming on, but it was never getting selected. So that was my suspicion. I got schematics for it. Schematics said that the selection goes straight into the processor, so I said, oh boy, I burnt the processor in it. The shorting block here had gone bad. The contacts had been bent out of shape, and it wasn't making contact, so it was never getting the select signal. So sometimes the solution on these things is as simple as you would like them to be. But things are hooked up. Of course I have, well, if I reset it now, I have the power off on this, so the controller isn't working. And it should go back to our old friend, the typewriter. And there it is. So now, of course, I have to supply power to this so the controller works, and then the controller has a 34-pin edge connector that goes to the drive. I also have to supply 5 volts to the drive. I could make a cable that taps 5 volts off of the controller board, but I already have all of that ready made. So now when I turn it on, I think what happens is it tries to figure out, is there a tape in tape 1, tape in tape 2, or a disk drive out there? And if it is, try booting from it. So, drum roll, it's probably going to embarrass me, but I'm going to reset the computer. And as you can see, it ignored it. The light didn't come on, so it didn't select it. Oh, I didn't turn on the drive. See, now the power light's on here, which means okay. Try number 2. I'm going to reset it. Select light comes on. Can you hear the little clicks? Oh, So it booted into TDOS 4.5. Let's have a look at that. I think that's a DOS that was done. I'm not sure if that was a Coleco product or not, but so it's in TDOS, which is kind of a derivative of CP/M. But if we look at the directory, we want to run Zork 1-40, which means 40 columns. It's not very fast, but you can see it. It's taking its time, but it will eventually boot. And there is Zork 1 running in 40 column mode on the Coleco Atom. Now notice, whenever you enter a command, it goes and accesses the disk. So it does its parsing, and then the parsing kind of tells it where to look for the next bunch of text, and then it reads that. Now this thing, the disk emulator, the Gotek, is a lot faster than a real floppy drive. And this kind of took a while, as you may have noticed, but this is running a whole lot faster than if there were a real floppy in there. So let's read the leaflet. So there you go. It works just fine. I guess as long as it runs Zork, it can be considered a valid computer. And just for grins, I put in a different image into the Gotek. And that's the same logo we saw when we loaded from cassette. So Copycat basically takes cartridges and makes tape or disk files out of them, advertises itself, and comes up. What's Carnival? Cabbage. Interesting stuff here, but I want to see what Carnival is. So how does this work? I hit 8. Was that an 8? And it loads, but yeah, it does actually work. Okay, this is the actual what the cartridge would look like. It keeps it on this screen for about 13 seconds. That's their copyright enforcement, or making sure that the consumer is informed of whose property this is. Then it comes up and gives you the options, and the numbers are not for the keyboard but for the controller. So I'm going to hit a 1. I'm going to get ready and play Carnival. Come back here. Hey, hey, hey! The buck just ate my points. Oh, and it subtracts points. But anyway, there is a Coleco Atom working. Does this have a volume on it? Yes, it does. So it's in good working condition. Question may be, am I going to go on a hunt to find an actual floppy drive? The answer is no. I mean, this already takes a long time to load everything, and with a real floppy drive, it's just going to be more of a pain. So I'm not going to deal with that. What I'll probably do is I'll use like a disk caddy, like something like this, because this is the form factor of a 3.5 inch drive. Then this becomes a 5.25 inch. If I put this in here and then mount it instead of this drive, and then I have the original top, fashion something for the bottom, and then that'll be my Coleco Atom. Anything else? Oh yeah, I didn't show you the auto dialer with 2 phone plugs on it. You will forgive me for not trying to demonstrate this. And other than that, that's it. That's what I got. And there is yet another PC. Thanks for watching. Please leave me a comment. A thumbs up would be appreciated. And subscribe. And why did this just turn off? Is that a screensaver? Don't tell me it died at the end of that. Oh, no. It is a screensaver. It actually comes back on. So yeah, see you next time.